It's nice to be here with all of you, and I appreciate the interest in community because it's been pretty much a lifelong passion for me. Starting back when I was 19 years old, my brothers and I bought 40 acres in Kentucky, little known fact. We bought 40 acres in the middle of nowhere in Daniel Boone National Forest in Kentucky for $1,250 back then. We still own that 40 acres, and our goal was to build a community there. So that started way back when for me. And of course, I ended up finding Yogananda's path and arrived at Ananda Village in 1976. And that was really an important part of my life to connect with Yogananda, connect with the community building movement, et cetera, et cetera. So I really thought I'd start with why community and why should we do community? And I think that for those of us who are serious on the path, the first answer is because Yogananda said so. Really, he set a blueprint out for a way to live together that was for people who weren't monastic necessarily. And the question is, how do you get traction on your spiritual growth if you don't have an environment? That famous line, environment is more powerful than willpower. And we've all seen that in our lives, and to the extent that we can cultivate a spiritually uplifting environment, we have much, much, much greater potential to grow spiritually. And so this is really the primary purpose. Yogananda saw that many of his disciples would be householders. And we're in that Kshatriya class, we're the warrior class. We aren't going to go hide out in the mountains, and although that's seeming like a good idea right now, but we aren't going to just hide out and meditate off by ourselves. Our Dharma is more in the world, and our Dharma is to serve in the world and to meditate. So those are the two, primary, foundational pillars of our path. We meditate deeply and we serve others. And this is how we grow. So starting communities is, in America especially, is kind of against the grain of our larger culture. We find we're very individually oriented in America, and we really celebrate that. It's a wonderful thing, really. But in the context of finding and creating a culture that really supports ourselves spiritually, that is a different matter. And so let me see if I'm still, okay. So Yogananda made this blueprint of gather together, those of like mind, learn how to live simply, make your inner life really rich. Don't worry about being so rich outwardly. This is just common sense, it is. And if you look at the world today, we all knew we were on the wrong path, with the way our society has evolved. We haven't been headed in a good direction for a while, environmentally, interpersonally, with our relations with each other. And really, it's easy to think that this could be the moment, the pivotal moment for the community's movement. It's been in the background for many decades. All kinds of, people from different walks of life have created community. And essentially, the more intention we put into our community, the more value we can get out of it. And so we find all kinds of interesting experiments with community. You're probably familiar with the co-housing movement. There's the new urbanism, there's the great towns, sort of idea of, and these are people who are all working on this problem of community. If you think about it, our communities are the building, just as a family is a building block of community, communities are the building blocks of our countries and of the world. And so it's the place where we can really make a difference. So in my life, I've had some really wonderful opportunities to be in community and serve in community, and we've done it every which way. And so my wife and I are kind of veterans of the communities movement, and we don't have the starry-eyed vision of community we once had. Rather, we have a very grounded understanding that if you live in this way, intentionally, spiritually, with others, the potential for growth is significantly greater than if you live in any other sort of random environment. I'm thinking of how our physical communities are created right now. A developer comes in, buys all the land, splits it in a way that would most accommodate the financial realities for himself, which is, that's how it works. It's fine. Nothing wrong with that per se. But in a community, we're looking for something totally different. We're looking how to optimize the quality of the community, the quality of our individual lives, and how we work together, how we live together. So it's just a very different paradigm, and more you find people are getting in front of that process. The project we're working on right now in Fort Collins, we're calling an intentional neighborhood. So it's a looser knit community in the sense that we still want everyone to buy their own homes and be autonomous on that level. But in the sort of classic co-housing way, we would have common facilities, a place to meditate together, a place to eat together, a place to gather together, a place to play together. And so all these things are investments in the life of the community and greatly enhance the value of a human life. And so one of the things I like to share this because we learned a lot of things in many years of living in groups, and there's nothing easy about it, I should mention. And I always say that, you wonder why there's so much conflict in the world. Well, just take a look at your own living room, and in a community setting, you can see all the dynamics present and accounted for that cause war and basically all kinds of strife. And so in a community setting, you are, especially an intentional community, you're faced more directly with all those things in yourself that really that's the only thing we have to do is work on ourselves, and that's the best contribution we can make to the world. But you see the littleness, the selfishness, the pettiness, the lack of vision, that we tend to, of expanded vision, that we humans can sort of drill down and be real sort of selfish, and community will break that apart very quickly. We've stumbled on 4 things, actually, we think are essential to having a harmonious community, and actually they work really well, and it's worth remembering. So the first one is we share sacred space together. And this, in our sort of vernacular, is we meditate together. And at Polestar, for those of you who don't know, we have recently lived in Hawaii for about 15 years, Ann and I, and started a community there. We have 20 acres and an organic garden, and did lots of programs, youth programs, taught Raja Yoga for many years, excuse me. But anyway, some of the things we learned was that we needed to embrace our spiritual practices, just full on. And we put a lot of energy into getting people to meditate together daily, if at all possible, or at least regularly. And so I remember Dharma Das from Sacramento visiting Polestar once, and he said, "So what's your attendance at meditation?" 95%. And it was true. Actually, I hadn't thought of it, but it was about that. People we put a lot of focus on that. We really put an emphasis on it. And I really think it was probably the most important thing that we could have done in order to make some measure of success at Polestar, which we did enjoy a measure of harmony and success there. And so the second thing is, of course, service, which I've already mentioned. Creative service, being creative in your work life and in your service life, and working as a team together is incredibly bonding. Along with sharing that sacred space and meditation, you have a way to express that inspiration outwardly, and that is very connecting for a group of people, very, very bonding. And then the third one, go figure, is food. We eat together, and this is kind of a phenomenon you find, is that when you share food together, it has this sort of connecting value. And we were all about this. I hate to say it, but we had many good chefs, and of course an organic garden, and we'd have people visiting from all over the world who would share their recipes, and so it was really, really a fun and connecting thing we had. And then the final one I always mention, because we adults forget this, play together, and so it's kind of the icing on the cake when people regularly play together. It just has a way of breaking down the egoic boundaries, and just has a way of connecting people like nothing else. And so we're kind of big sports enthusiasts. We play volleyball religiously, and more recently pickleball is a big passion of ours. And of course, game nights and drama things and all kinds of things we would play. But I think the laughter of a community is just important and really key to a long-term, healthy, functioning, harmonious community. So those are four things we kind of identified. And when we would get off, you could sort of feel the energy would get off sometimes. You could usually look at that list and say, okay, what are we missing here? And one of those four was probably not in focus in some way. So I hope that is hopeful, that is helpful. And then and really the opportunity now, I think, in the world, because this is a really difficult time for a lot of us, and you can't deny that this kind of difficulty is often what is a precursor to significant change. And in fact, most of us find significant change hard to manage without some kind of a impetus that this whole sort of crisis in our country and in our world is bringing. And so it could well be that there will be much more interest in spiritual living and in community living in the near future. And really, now that I've seen many different types of communities and helped found one, you really understand that we need all kinds of communities, that people putting intention into their specific locale and how they want to live consciously, spiritually. That is like so to be supported and celebrated. So when Maiji said you guys were interested in community, I'm definitely a fan, and I would definitely help any way I could. In fact, I've got a couple of several different community projects I'm helping out with right now, and and have connected quite a bit with the co-housing movement too, which I think if you guys, I'm sure, have some in Dallas, it would be worth connecting with, because they are now, they've got the banks in line with their vision now. They're sort of normalizing and bringing to the mainstream this idea of putting more intention behind your community building. So I really appreciate that, because as Yogananda predicted, this would spread like wildfire. Well, the way that's going to happen is when it becomes more, the systems of our society are more attuned, the financing and the cultural understanding and appreciation of the effort, that the practicalities of the development and the ownership and of the land and the houses and how you navigate all that. It's a lot of challenges in there for sure. But to me, one of the solutions is you have a lot of different expressions of it. And that's really gives everyone the opportunity, given their own sensibilities, their own evolution, their own ideas of how best to live, many options for how they could live in community.